Okay, Mr. Chairman, we're live.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Tate. I am now the acting chair of the Historic Preservation Commission of Paterson, New Jersey. I am filling for our previous chair, Joanne Wiley, who recently resigned. Thank you all who are tuning into tonight's program. Tim, can we have the notice of compliance, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting is properly given and published in the North Jersey Herald and News on August 7th, 2020, and filed with the clerk of the city of Paterson on July 31st, 2020, and posted in the Paterson City Hall immediately thereafter.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Can we have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Corbo.
Present.
Commissioner Garcia Leon. Commissioner Ahmed.
Present.
Commissioner Rafael.
Absent.
Commissioner Redmond.
Present.
Commissioner Simpson.
Absent.
Commissioner Walter.
Present.
Chair Tate.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Moving forward, I'd like to ask for an approval of minutes for the September 21st, 2020 meeting that we can.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Secretary, we have it was moved by Commissioner Rafael and it was seconded by Commissioner Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I correct that the votes of both alternates will be recorded right now?
It seems that only Kenny is absent. So it will just be one alternate being recorded. That will be Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Understood.
Okay.
Confirmed. Okay, so now that we've approved the minutes, I'd like to move to new business.
Hold on, we need to do a roll call for minutes. We didn't do the roll call yet, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, confirmed.
Commissioner Garcia Leon. Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Rafael.
Yes.
Commissioner Redmond.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Absent.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask that because you hear so much noise in the background, can everybody mute their phones if they're not speaking?
Confirmed. Per Commissioner Redmond, can everyone mute their phones if they're not actively speaking?
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'd like us to move to new business. And we're going to first start with item A, 339-341 East 35th Street in the Eastside Park Historic District. It's a design review of the application to replace windows on existing porch and to the existing siding with vinyl siding. Executive, would you like to introduce this project?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. However, we discussed about a recusal.
Yes, I would like to recuse myself from this application, and Commissioner Mohammed will fill in for me during this application.
Thank you, Will.
Okay.
Gianfranco, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so we have a design review application that we're going to be looking at this evening, and we have the owner applicant here to testify as well. I would like to ask our Tim Henderson, our historic preservation specialist, Tim Henderson, to go ahead and give us some background on the application. Before then, I would like to note, though, that there was I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted by whoever is not muted, and I'm looking for who that is. Thank you very much, whoever that is. Okay. So, commissioners, in your pre-meeting packet, we sent around a report, a memorandum that memorialized our review of the application administratively, and you had the benefit of being able to take a look at that prior to the meeting. And I'll ask Tim Henderson to go over some of the other details about the application. And I'll also go ahead and, if Tim asks me to put up a photo of the building so we can start to look at the photo while the presentation's given. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, thank you. And thank you, Gianfranco, for putting up the image of the property. In summer 2019, the owner of the property, which you are about to see, elected to replace existing aluminum siding with a vinyl product, a vinyl clapboard. At the same time, the porch, which was already enclosed, had wood windows that were failing, and the property owner also elected to replace windows on the front enclosed porch. At the same time, you see the ribbon of 3 windows right there. Those units were what the property owner replaced. During a sweep of the East Side Park Historic District in July of 2020, this past summer, I noticed this property, and I noticed from previous photos which I had seen that the siding had changed. I did not know when specifically the siding had been changed, but I knew that it had been. So I took photographs of the property and referred it to the zoning officer. A zoning inspector subsequently visited the property and issued a notice documenting violation of the historic preservation ordinance in the City of Paterson Municipal Code, and the applicant was directed to the HPC staff office. I counseled the property owner on what had happened. The property owner was aware of the East Side Park Historic District, but not specifically aware that her property was within the envelope of designation. The property owner then submitted an application for the work that had been completed, which is the procedure that Gianfranco and I have been following with all violations referrals. And Gianfranco and I reviewed the application administratively. Gianfranco specifically offered the property owner several options to abate her violation and bring the property back into compliance. The options were to remove all of the vinyl siding and evaluate what historic fabric was there, and or reinstall wood or another approved product, which would be the hardy cement board siding or similar. The other option that Gianfranco offered the property owner was to remove the vinyl on the front elevation of the home, which is the west elevation, and only replace the siding on that front elevation. The property owner was not satisfied with either option and instead elected to schedule her application for a hearing with the commission, and that is what has brought us here today. In the interim, Gianfranco has requested that her summons to municipal court be postponed until her matter can be adjudicated by the commission here. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Chairman, the owner applicant is here and is ready to testify.
Thank you, Gianfranco, and thank you, Tim. I just wanted to have one clarification since and Tate is being recused for this. Is both of the alternate gonna vote?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. At this time, I would like to invite the applicant to be sworn in.
Ben David?
Sorry, that's the new. Sorry, Ben David, can you please swear in the applicant, Deborah Smith?
I wonder if he's hearing us. Ben David, are you there? We're going to try to contact him.
Yeah, I just sent a
Give
message.
me a moment. Did you send him a message?
Yeah, but through WebEx, so you could contact him through the phone.
Okay. Okay, we have IT also calling on him now as well. Let's just give him a moment. His connection may have failed. I don't know. It's real quiet out there. Do I still have everyone?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Joyce is still here.
Joyce is still here.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Ben.
Okay, Ben is reconnecting. I got the message that he's reconnecting, so he should be with us momentarily.
Thank you, Gianfranco. Deborah, at this time, you could also unmute when Ben joins in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Ben, are you there? Mr. Chairman, do you know how to do the swearing in?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay, so then I'll do it then, so we can keep moving forward. Deborah Smith?
Yes.
I'm back.
There you go. There's Ben.
Okay, Deborah Smith?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not alone just to say what anybody else could have said. You swear, or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thought so. Let's proceed.
Okay, I have the
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Am I going now?
Yes.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Okay, I have a statement to read. Just to officially introduce myself, my name is Deborah Smith. I'm a Patersonian, born, educated, and raised in this city. I reside at 341 East 35th Street. I purchased my home in December of 1992. Of course, my purpose for coming before this commission is to request a reconsideration of Mr. Archimedes' letter denying my August 27, 2000 2020 application for failing to obtain appropriate approvals as per provision 300-113 of the municipal code. As background, please be advised that on or about August 19, 2020, I received a summons, SC 162954, for violation of the Land Development Ordinance provision 300-1.1C for no zoning approval. However, I did not know about the Historic Preservation Office, the application process, nor the commission existed until I received the summons. Be further advised that the only official communication I received regarding Eastside Historic District designation was a letter from the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Agency dated January 10th, 2005. The letter notified me that the Eastside Park Historic District was entered on the National Register of Historic Places on July 7, 2004. The letter also advised that, and I'm going to quote, listing on the National Register ensures that properties affected by this undertaking that are federally executed, licensed, or financially assisted will be subject to review and comment in accordance with the National Preservation Act of 1966. I have not received any further information regarding the Eastside Historic District designation from the State of New Jersey, the City of Paterson, or the Historic Preservation Office. Therefore, I had no reason to believe that anyone other than I would determine what improvements I could make on my home. I made several calls and sent an email to the city inspector's office to determine why I was issued the summons. I finally spoke to an inspector, I believe his name to be Victor, and although he was not the issuing inspector, he explained that I might have received the summons because of work performed on my home without a permit. I informed him that the work on my house was done over a year ago, and my contractor had advised me that according to New Jersey law passed in 2017, a zoning permit for installation or replacement of siding on a single dwelling home was no longer required. I further advised the inspector that I went online and verified the law did exist before I signed the contract to have the work performed. The inspector told me that my contractor was correct, but because I lived in Eastside Historic District, there was another process I had to follow. He then advised me to contact the Historic Preservation Office, which I did. I reached out to the HP office and subsequently spoke with Mr. Tim Henderson. Actually, we met on August 27, 2020. He advised me that I had failed to obtain a permit for work performed on my home. I informed Mr. Henderson of what my contractor told me about the New Jersey law, that I had verified the law existed before I signed the contract, and that the zoning inspector also confirmed the law existed. While Mr. Henderson acknowledged the law existed, he advised me of another process that I did not follow, being the submission of an application to the HP office for review and approval beforehand. I informed him I had no knowledge of this requirement. We had a cordial conversation. The meeting ended with him advising me that he would discuss my situation with his manager and get back to me. I subsequently received a phone call from Mr. Archimedes. We briefly discussed the situation and we agreed to meet in his office on September 15, 2020. During that meeting with Mr. Archimedes and Mr. Henderson, I was handed a letter signed by Kenneth Simpson, chairperson of the City of Paterson Historic Preservation Committee dated February 24th, 2015. The letter was addressed to homeowners, Eastside Park Historic District, not to any specific homeowner. I was informed that the letter was sent to all homeowners in the Eastside District. I immediately informed them that I had never received such a letter, to which they acknowledged that due to expensive postage, the letters were not sent by any means of proof of delivery. We discussed some options, including my right to present my case to this commission. I advised them that I would give due consideration to going before this commission, and I would advise them accordingly. Once I arrived home that day, I read the February 15th letter in its entirety. I note that the letter's purpose was an invitation to attend an open public meeting scheduled March 23, 2015, to obtain comments regarding the Eastside Historic District designation and the proposed design guideline. The letter states in pertinent part, a review is started when homeowners apply for a zoning or building permit from the City of Paterson to make changes to the exterior of their property. The letter goes on to state, the draft design guidelines are not yet in effect, pending review and approval by the Commission. However, as a homeowner of Eastside District, I received no information from the city or the HPC relative to the outcome of this meeting or the status of the proposed design guidelines that were subsequently adopted on April 20th, 2015. Also during the September 15th meeting, I received a copy of the survey done on my home, which was approved by the Commission, which I presume occurred sometime before May 28, 2014, when the City Council adopted the Eastside Historic District designation. After review of the survey, I noted it contained several inaccuracies regarding my home. First, it indicates my house was built in 1914. However, the information I have, reflects that my home was built in 1932. I attempted to resolve this conflict by checking the tax assessor's records. Although some years ago, the records did indicate my house was built in 1932, no date appears to show now. So where the year 1914 came from, I don't know. I mention this to correct the record if possible. The survey also reflects wood frame windows. I did not have wood framed windows at the time of the survey was done, as I had those windows replaced on May 9th, 1994, on May 9th, 1994 with 8 double hung aluminum frame windows. And I have the receipt for that if you need it. The survey also indicates the exterior of my house was vinyl siding, which is also incorrect. When I purchased my home, the exterior was aluminum siding, which I had replaced to vinyl siding, in May of 2019. As I mentioned earlier, I only became aware of the HP application process after receiving the summons. I researched the city ordinance and the design guidelines. And with all due respect, I believe that my due process rights were violated, in that it appears that there was no public awareness notification from the city or HPC regarding the adoption of this application process for the design guideline. In addition, my review of New Jersey law NJAC 5:23-2.7C1 adopted March 5, 2018 does not require an application for building permit for siding, repairs, or replacement for 1 or 2 family dwellings. Consequently, based on that law, I was under no obligation to apply for a zoning permit. Yet I received a summons for not obtaining zoning approval, which was not required. Hence, I submit that the New Jersey law have rendered the ordinance 301.1A to be flawed, at least for citing purposes. Then to provision 313.13.1 of the municipal code states in pertinent part, persons seeking to undertake action requiring a review as per this provision of this section must submit a completed application to the commission. The problem with my situation as I see it, there was no way for me to become aware of provision 13-13.1 without first applying for a zoning permit per provision 300-1.1A, which again did not apply to me. There is no provision in the ordinance that would have apprised me of the HPC process unless I had applied for a zoning permit. Besides, it is my understanding that guidelines are never mandatory. Instead, they are merely a list of best practices that agencies, either city, federal, state, or civilian entities may use to reach the desired outcome of a proposed policy or process. So I don't understand the enforcement over these guidelines. Additionally, the summons SC 162954 cites a violation of 300-1.1C, which references certificate of occupancy. So I'm sure the attorney would agree with me that that incorrect citation standing alone renders the summons null and void. Accordingly, I did not violate any provisions outlined in the ordinance relative to the HPC process, nor did I fail to obtain zoning approval for work performed on my house in May of 2019, given the state's ordinance cited earlier. In closing, as previously stated, I purchased my house in 1992, and since that time, I have faithfully, fully, and timely paid my property taxes every quarter. I love my town, I love my home, as well as my neighborhood. I sincerely believe that my home does not look any different than many of the homes on my block or in this district. Nor do I believe that the work adversely impacted any historical nature or attractiveness of my block or this district. While I appreciate the goal of this commission to preserve the historical nature of homes in this district, I also believe that because of the lack of public awareness of the full meaning of the historic preservation designation, I am not the only homeowner that believes this designation was meant for homes located on Park, Durham, Wall Avenue, and Eastside Park. The potential penalty for non-compliance of this HPC process standing alone requires full public campaign to ensure homeowners' due process rights, especially since your enforcement powers could cause homeowners to not only waste money already spent on work performed, but to incur additional expense to remove the material used for the work and purchase or replace it with different material, yet more expensive. Accordingly, I respectfully request that the Commission render a decision dismissing the summons SC 162-954 with prejudice, and that the certificate of no effect be issued for the work performed on my house or the denial letter approved by this commission. Thank you so much for your time. Hello?
Thank you, Deborah, for your statement. We will into the commissioners and we'll have a discussion and also we'll be able to ask you questions at this moment. So first I'll open it up for the commissioner. Are there any questions to Deborah? If you have any questions, please raise your hand so Gianfranco can call on you.
Commissioner Redmond?
This question is more to the administration. Did we ever clear up the dates of her home?
If there's anyone that's not on mute, please mute yourself.
It is a very tight.
Okay, that was Nakima who was giving the feedback. Okay, so the question that Commissioner Redmond was asking was about clearing up the dates on the home. And I see Tim is also here. Do you have any comments on that, Tim, or should I take that?
My answer would be that I didn't do any further research into the date of Ms. Smith's home. I did not notice this discrepancy. The 1914 date that Ms. Smith is referencing is from the 1987 Zakalak survey, which is a resource that we reference as a baseline in our office on a daily basis. And I could, for my part, do some research into other map series that we have access to see if there's an alternative date, but I have not done that.
Okay. Also, I would add to that the survey that Ms. Smith referenced is the 1987, we call it the Zakalak survey. It's what's called a pedestrian survey or a kind of drive-by survey of all of the buildings. This was done citywide. And the information was not designed in terms of the survey scope to be back-checked for each property in the way that Tim just described. So these are kind of estimates that these reviewers were doing with clipboard and pencil, and there are many errors like this. For example, the recording of siding that is, that they write down vinyl in the survey, but then it's actually aluminum siding, so there are discrepancies in the survey. Ultimately, however, the survey becomes the first sort of review of being able to put some boundaries around districts or identify specifically individual historic properties that may have landmark that might be eligible for landmark status. And overall, the pedestrian survey is what starts the process. As we go forward in the process, we tend to hone it down better, and the designation of the Eastside District that was undertaken in 2004 then lists each one of these properties again, and there's another set of data that's also generated from a little more research. Also, we found that 2004 data isn't always 100% accurate. We find that dating buildings from the pedestrian survey is not as accurate as doing some map research, as Tim mentioned. And we also find that the information that you'll find on property record cards is usually also not accurate because it comes from the same surveys, pedestrian survey. When people were gathering this information, a lot of times it goes back to into the 1930s when the tax records were redone during the WPA era. So there's also errors in the tax records regarding dating properties. When you look at a property's deed, there's another source where there may be some assumptions made by the deed about the age of the property. So there's all these different sources. A lot of them come from pedestrian surveys, and they're not entirely accurate. The time that we can get most accurate is if we had records that exist that get passed down from owner to owner, and that just usually doesn't happen. So the germane documents within the first 25 years you generally lost. and it's much more difficult to put an exact date on the building. So what we do is we rely on our research and we call it map reconnaissance. When we look at our series of maps going back to 1885, we kind of see when the building appeared, when it started to show up on the maps, and we can get a sense of between what years the building was built. The difference here in Deborah's statement about 1914 versus 1930s is really inconsequential with regard to the East Side Park Historic District. Its period of significance starts from the late 19th century and spans into the early 1950s. So it kind of encompasses all of the building episodes in the first 50 years of the 20th century. Are there other questions for the applicant? Other questions for the applicant? I don't see anyone, Mr. Chairman, with their hand raised. Can you hear me?
Franco? Yes.
Okay.
Franco, would like to ask for discussion amongst the commissioners.
So first, a resolution first.
Yes. Do we have a resolution for this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Resolution number 20-13, the conditional approval of a design review application for the property located at 339-341 East 35th Street, Lot 8626, Lot 16.
Now can we get a motion to open it up for discussion?
Motion to open for discussion.
Joyce, as first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second is Nakiba. So commissioners, on the floor, we have a resolution for conditional approval for this house right here. Now, what are your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Simpson. I just wanted to say that I'm present for the record.
Very good. Commissioner Simpson, were you present for the testimony?
No, not for the full testimony, so I was saying so it's part of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So both of the alternates are still voting since Ken wasn't part of the whole testimony.
Correct. It looks like Commissioner Walter would like to start the discussion.
Thank you.
Yes, I just want to make my statement on this. For a few years before this became an historic district, a neighborhood association was proposing it. They sent out many memos out to every homeowner in the district. Many times, I think 3 or 4 different mailings went out during that course of time, during the time that she was living there. She should have gotten those memos, and I know a memo was sent, it became a district, the one she was referring to. So she should have been very aware of the historic district, precise in all her paperwork. And I do not understand how she could have missed the designation paperwork that went out to every homeowner in the district. Also, if I go through a stop sign that I didn't know was there last week, they just put it up, it's fault. The city doesn't have to notify me on every single ordinance change that the city makes. It's my responsibility to find out what ordinance there are. And so she should have been aware of the ordinances, and she should, and there's no excuse to not follow the law as it stands. So I think we could make a compromise on the front of the building and have her remove that and put in more appropriate materials on the front of the building and let her keep the but that would, on the sides of the building, that would be a compromise. It's, we would be compromising, so, she should be appreciative of that fact. That's about it, thank you.
Sorry, Rich, you cut off a little at the end. What would you suggest as a compromise that you said?
The compromise would be to redo the front of the building. You let her keep the siding on the sides and the back, redo the front of the building in appropriate materials.
Okay.
I see that Commissioner Redmond, do you have a comment?
No, I just never took my hand down, I'm sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Rafael?
I did not raise my hands for comment.
Okay, I see your hand is raised, so maybe you want to take it down. Okay, that's better. Okay, I don't see any other hands up for comments. So, any other comments, commissioners?
So commissioners, at the moment, only Walter has suggested a compromise where only the front has to be replaced and the side will still be allowed to stay as vinyl. We could add this as our conditional approval, and then we could get a motion to approve or deny it.
Excuse me, this is Deborah. Am I allowed to speak?
No, this isn't the time for you to speak, Deborah.
Okay, thank you.
I make the motion to accept Rich's conditional approval.
Do we have a second?
Well, since I suggested, I guess I should second it.
So Nakima is first and Rich is second. Roll call, please, Tim.
Chairman. Commissioner Corbo.
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed. Chair Ahmed.
No.
Commissioner Patel.
Yes.
Commissioner Redmond.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Abstain?
Commissioner Walter.
Yes.
Chair Tate is recused. Motion carries.
Thank you, Tim. I would like to give back the agenda to Will.
Confirmed. Can we move along to new business item B? We're gonna go to 225 Grand Street / 8-14 Morris Street in the Great Falls Historic District. This is a plan and review of an application to demolish an existing shop building and construct elevated gymnasium buildings with parking underneath. Executive Director, do you have any introductory comments before we swear in the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to get some photos on screen, so bear with me before I start. Bear with me, I'm getting the folder open and so forth. street.
Executive Director, could we confirm that Ms. Smith's business is concluded for the evening?
Yes, the resolution was passed, and please, as Ms. Smith is still on the line, we'd just like to say we'll be in touch with you to further discuss next steps. And thank you for participating in the meeting tonight and providing your testimony. We'll reach out to you and we'll be in touch. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. I found the photos and I'm going to share them with you. Okay, can someone confirm that they see the photo on screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this application is a new application, but we've seen this property before in previous applications. In fact, I'd like to go back and remind everyone of our first planning application for the granite mill located on Grand Street. I think the address is 225 Grand Street. This is not a photo of the front of that mill. This is a separate structure that is on the same property that is associated with the granite mill, and it served as a storage facility for flax products that were being manufactured at the granite mill, which is actually perpendicular, right, sort of on the right edge frame of this photograph. So we provided an enthusiastic support and approval for the rehabilitation of the Grand Street Mill to convert it into a reuse as a charter school. At the time, we reviewed windows and finishes and all the usual treatments for the entire outside of the building, including 2 new administrative entrances, and the county planning board also provided review with regard to a pullout from Grand Street, a county road, for a bus drop-off location in front of the mill. So we then honored the applicants and also the tenants of the mill with the Historic Preservation Award for their outstanding preservation work to preserve and reuse that building. At the same time, the application did not have the school occupying the entire mill. There were previously existing commercial tenants on the first floor and then the wing, one of the wings of the mill. And as represented in the planning review at the time, they were to remain in place. It was the upper 3 floors of the building that were being converted for school use. And that has been the situation with regard to that project in status quo of it for a while since the project finished and the occupancy began. Subsequently, was not long ago, in 2018, that we saw a new planning application for the rear part of the granite mill. So it involving the building that you see here on screen, the storage building. And also, there are other ancillary buildings on this property behind this one that were included in the review. The proposal at that time was to convert this storage building on the facility. Can everyone still hear me? I'm just checking my connection. Can someone say if they're hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So I'll keep going. So of the other ancillary buildings that were on the site behind the main mill, we have this main storage building, and the second application was to convert this building into a school use as another charter school. The demolition of an existing long 1-story machine shop building, which was to the right and off screen of this photo, and the installation and erection of a new building at the rear of the property for a gymnasium, because of course the school needs to have a gymnasium space. The rest of the ancillary buildings were left as they were in their various commercial uses. And I have some photos here of the project to demonstrate to you how it's been coming along. There's been quite a lot of work completed on the outside. It's almost finished, and there's also the interior work is almost completed as well. The photo here is one of the ancillary buildings that continue to be left on the site after our application, and I'm going to go through a couple of these to give you a sense of the alleyway between. See if I can rotate this. I'm rotating this photo so it can be seen correctly. This is an alleyway between, on the right side, the large granite mill that was previously converted, and on the left corner is the storage building that is under conversion now. And this is a shot of the new gymnasium getting started. This is a photo of, I believe, footings and being poured. This was part of the previous approval that the commission approved and subsequently approved by the planning board. Right on the other side of the cement truck here is where the long machine shop was that was demolished in order to make way for parking, a bus turnaround and drop off, and this gymnasium building is behind that. This is another view of one of the other ancillary buildings. I'm using my cursor to kind of show you. It looks complicated, but there's a deck for a piece of machinery that's built like kind of sticking out of the building. You can see it's been a conglomeration of changes over time with various different materials. And this is kind of a larger overview of the corner of the L of the granite mill. So here on the left edge of the photo, the tall building is the back side of the granite mill, and there's an L, a smaller 3-story addition that sticks out of the Grant Street mill. And these were part of the first approvals that we looked at. So the application tonight is another planning application for another proposal to continue to improve the site toward a complete reuse as a school facility. And I won't say too much about the project and I'll leave that for the presentation by the applicant. However, these are some views of the ancillary buildings that still remain on site. This sign that you see here, I'll try to enlarge it. Maybe it can be clear to people who are watching, because we believe that this is an important aspect of the application. It's occupied right now by TRB Electro Corporation, quality anodizers and metal finishers. And this is a process of anodizing aluminum material. It's an electrostatic process where they electrify the product, and then they let it sit in a room of particles that then get attracted and stuck to the aluminum piece. So, this is a form of coating, like we've heard of other kinds of coatings of metals, like chrome is, for example, is a plating method that is also done with electricity and by charging metals to attract other electrons to stick to it. And the list goes on of different kinds of coatings of metals. And that's something that this process is something that would have existed in industrial buildings in Paterson and outside of Paterson, and that are processes that still go on today. Metal coating is a very important part of manufacturing in many, many, many products that we use. So this is not necessarily a obtuse use at a site like this, especially prior to its conversion as a school. This would have been the kind of use that you would have seen in light manufacturing use since these mills stopped producing textiles. So this is still an active business. We had a similar business that was active in the machine shop that was torn down. And I just wanted to point out the significance of the business, what kind of business it is, and context for it. So we did a lot of work with our approvals on the last application to request that the applicant provide an in-depth historical study and context of the site, and to contextualize the ancillary buildings on the site. And in the study, the most significant ancillary building on the site, you've seen the other ones now. I'm going to actually go to another photo if I can go forward. This is a good overview of the ancillary buildings that are still left on the site. Of the ancillary buildings on the site, the machine shop was the most significant and the most intact with regard to integrity. These buildings, as you can see, have endured quite a number of changes over time, and are not really readable with regard to their first iterations and uses. It is highly likely that the squarish building with the hipped roof is served as a power plant. In other words, they would generate electricity using steam power to distribute electricity locally to the rest of the mill sometime after 1914. And by the way, the granite mill dates back to 1880 and 1881. So this would have been a later part of the operation of the Dolphin Jute Works that was happening in the early 20th century, in case you're thinking about what the use for the buildings were. So the context that I'm trying to point out was that the most significant ancillary building, the machine shop, was allowed to be demolished in preference of the reuse plan for this project. And these two buildings are now up for tonight for consideration for demolition as well. And the applicants will tell you more about what their intentions are with regard to new buildings and the change of occupancy in the granite mill toward the end result. So with that said, I've given some context to our first review of the granite mill, which you can see the back of here, and the second review and second project that is almost completed now, which is the reuse of the storage building and the site and the new gymnasium previously by the commission. And this third application comes to us this evening for your consideration to kind of finalize the site's transformation from a textile producing facility to an educational facility. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Director. At this time, we'd like to swear in the applicant. Ben David, please. Executive Director, do you see the legal counsel on the list of participants?
Yes, I see him. This is the same that happened last time. Although he's here, he doesn't seem to hear us, and he's not on mute. So, I mean,
So,
you can go ahead.
Is the number 972?
I can go ahead and take care of this, if that would be okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Confirmed.
Okay. So, Mr. Spira, can you bring your team forward to be sworn in? And I'd like to swear each person in one at a time. So, if you plan to make a statement or present in this time, you're going to need to be sworn in. So, Mr. Spira, you'll be the first one, okay? Mr. Spira, are you there? It looks like Spira is not on my list. Wait a minute, am I missing him? Mr. Feldman, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Do you see or did you hear anything from Mr. Spira? Is he still on our meeting?
He was. I'm actually texting him right now. He says he's there. Let me ask him if he could hear you. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. We're just going to wait a second and see, because I know Mr. Spira?
Hello again?
He says he hears you. Maybe he's on mute.
So we,
Ben is back.
hi, Ben. Mr.
Hi
Spira, can you
there,
hear
right
me?
last word. Hello,
I am here.
There he is.
okay. Okay, now, technical note first. I never,
You hear me now? You guys hear me now?
Yeah,
yes.
we hear you, Zev.
Oh,
Okay. And to the Gianfranco, to the chair, just for technical, I don't want to inconvenience the board again. I never lost audio. I was hearing the whole time, but for some reason you stopped hearing me. I don't know why.
Yeah. I understand.
Anthony about right? Yeah, so Zev, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
That'd be the right answer. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next person will be Mr. Feldman.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead then, David. You need to swear him in too.
Okay, Mr. Feldman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
That was a good choice.
Okay. Now we have Mr. Jarowski from Dynamic Engineering.
Yes, Mr. Jarowski, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm tempted to just say ditto, but I guess one should spell out the words, you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
That's a good choice again.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do we have the gentleman from the concrete company? Is he still on the line?
I don't
Larry?
think he was able to attend. I don't think he was able to attend.
Okay, so we have the three of you to present then, correct?
Right.
Okay, then go ahead, Mr. Spear. You can start off.
Okay, good evening, commissioners and director and chairman. Like Gianfranco introduced me, this is the third time I'm coming to you guys with the board, and I'm not going to say the whole story again from Gianfranco. I'm just going to pick up some very important points that Gianfranco mentioned. We started out with a small project on Grand Street, and we were very we had a very good opportunity to reface that whole Grand Street, and it came out beautiful. Like Gianfranco mentioned, we did win an award, and that gave us an opportunity, or more of an appetite, to keep on moving forward. And we went to Mars Street, which after the building was completed with all the windows, although we felt it was very expensive, but looking back, the place is actually gorgeous and looks nice. We're very excited. Now we have one little, as a businessman and somebody that likes historic and somebody that likes education, we have one piece of business which is unfinished. And therefore we're coming to tonight to the commissioners and the committee to discuss. We have the alleyway that, although it's so beautified, obviously the contrast is much more. It's left a group of buildings very unfinished, and it doesn't bring you. You start having, like Gianfranco mentioned, the commercial uses, a very intense commercial uses, with some critical chemicals and other uses. We feel that we have a perfect opportunity, especially that 225 Grand Street School reached out. They need more space. They have a perfect opportunity now to clean up that whole alleyway, make it look educational center only, children only. We'll have no trucks, no 53-footed trucks, a container in UPS or FedEx, and bring it into a children-only site, fully education, but only having educators and children on site, which will, besides give an environmental-free area, because we have that intense use of the anodizers. This will always bring back that the whole square block will be fully completed historically and educationally, and will be a perfect use for our generations to come. The perfect use. We do have the professionals. I'll let the professionals do their work and presenting a little more details. But I want to thank you guys again for taking the opportunity and listening to my application this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spira. Is our engineer or Mr. Feldman going to be next? Who's going to be next?
I would assume David Feldman should be next. David Feldman will present us a little bit how the building, what type of building he's trying to put up there, and discuss, how it's going to serve the next school. And we'll take it a little bit, and after that, probably the engineer will take his testimony, I guess.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. Feldman, I'm going to go ahead and provide you the ability to share your screen so you can make your presentation. Do you see a button at the bottom of your screen that says share?
Yes.
Okay, try to click on that, and it should give you a window that has your different applications that's open. I think you already got it. And what program are you in right now?
These are
Presenter? PDF viewer?
These are PDFs that were created.
Okay. Okay, I'm asking you to see if we can get this to show on full screen mode so that they'll be as big as possible on our viewing screen here on everyone else's computer.
I believe they already are.
They already are. Okay. Very good. If that's the best you can do, then that's that. You can get started, please.
Okay. This is the second time that I'm testifying before this particular board. Or third, I was involved. I was the original architect that came before you initially when we converted the Morris Street facility into the educational facility that it currently is. I was also the architect that came before you when we requested the ancillary building, which was the machine shop, to be raised so that we can provide a gymnasium facility for the Morris Street School. As mentioned earlier, that particular building which you allowed us to raise was probably the most important ancillary building on the site. We're now coming before you to ask to raise the remaining ancillary buildings, which, if you give me 1 second, I just want to switch over to. So just bear with me 1 second. Which you should now see on your screen, which is a similar picture to what Gianfranco brought up earlier in his presentation. So as you could see, we also noted some elements to the existing building. A portion of the building was constructed in 1915. A portion dates back to 1905, which, as Gianfranco described, to be the facility that housed the heating for the granite mill. There was a small bump out that dates back to approximately 1915, and then there's a portion of the building that is roughly 1970s. Even though these buildings, or a good portion of the buildings, date back to the early 1900s, I'm in agreement with Gianfranco that this is not the most important ancillary buildings that were on the site, and B, just by looking at the exteriors, you could see how they have changed and been modified over the years since they were originally constructed. In my professional opinion, raising this structure as well is going to be a vast improvement over and allowing us to put the addition of a new gymnasium that's going to work with the granite mill facility, or the Grand Street School, as opposed to what's there. Mr. Spear testified earlier that by removing these structures, we are now going to have a complete educational facility where there won't be any interaction between work-related and children. There won't be any large vehicles traveling into the site that currently does, as it does now. So I think from a planning perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And it's also, I think, the last piece of the puzzle that Mr. Spear is attempting to. Is the squeaking? All right, I'm going to go back to the architecturals for a minute. At this point, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the architecturals and now briefly describe our intention with the facility and what we're proposing. Please bear with me 1 second. Okay. So now you should see the architecturals back on the screen. And this is the front elevation of the Grand Street School. The long drawing that's labeled 1CS in the center of the page. As you could tell, there is not going to be any modification or any changes whatsoever to that existing facade that faces the street. The alteration or addition to the building is going to be in the rear portion of the site, which is really nestled between or behind this facility that was renovated and the facility on Morris Street. So from the street, you're not really going to get a view of the new facility that's being added. If I go down to the lower level, which indicates the rear elevation, you can see where I'm highlighting right now the area that's going to be the addition for the school. That area is also is in close proximity to the new gymnasium that's also being built and currently under construction. The only facade that you will really get a glimpse of is this facade right here. This particular facade is the portion of the new addition, and I'll show you in a second, the new addition that faces the rear of the Morris Street educational facility. So if I go to the floor plan, you can see where this X is, where we have this X indicated, which is located above this parking area, is where that facility is being placed. The elevation that I was depicting earlier over here that you would see is this elevation right here. So the only time you would really perceive that elevation is when you are actually behind the Morris Street facility, which is located here. Okay, so when you're behind this facility, standing in the proposed new parking lot, you'll be able to see that facade. The other three facades of the gymnasium really have limited and minimal visibility. The facade over here, okay, is adjacent to the new gymnasium that's under construction, so you really don't get a view of that. And the remaining two elevations that are adjacent to the existing Grand Street School are located here, which are roughly 5 feet or so off of the existing building. and located here, which is located roughly about 20 feet or 22 feet off of the rear of the building. The intention of taking this building, okay, that we're elevated with parking underneath, and pulling it away from the existing building wasn't intentional. The idea behind that was to leave the facade of the existing Grand Street rear building, which is over here, completely untouched. So the only portion of this new gymnasium that comes in contact with this facade of the Grand Street structure is a little breezeway right here, not breezeway, a little walkway that connects on the upper level to that existing school. So the whole rear facade of the existing building, except for where we're making this 10-foot connection, is left untouched. In addition, the portion of the school or building that has the appendage that protrudes out is also left untouched, except for where the building comes in contact with an existing stair tower that's currently there. So the idea was very thoughtful in terms of the location of this and how this worked with regards to the existing building. So the intent is not to disturb any of the windows along this facade or any of the windows or brickwork along this facade. The only, again, interruption that'll occur is where we have the walkway through here to the connection of the existing building. Other than that, we also provide a emergency stair tower in one of the corners for egress purposes. And you could see the outline that I'm going around currently is the buildings that we're asking to be demolished at this particular point in time. If anybody has any other questions, I could answer them. If not, that really is pretty much the testimony on behalf of the architecturals.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from your team who would like to speak before we open it up for questions?
I believe the engineer, if you feel that to be a necessity at this point.
Do you believe that that would be valuable for your case, your application?
If it's okay, just bear it here. I would appreciate if Joe could let the board know how the rotation on the site would be better, the safety, the parking would work out better, how much this will help out in general. Joe, if it's okay to show that rendering that we went by the planning board, if you want to share with the commissioners of the boards how this would help the site the way it's now. It doesn't have the feasibility. If you could show what currently what we have and what we're proposing, that would be helpful, I believe.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Dev, absolutely. Hopefully you can all see our screen, which has a colored rendering of the site. And it's really just a colored version of what Mr. Feldman just described. So if you look at the rendering, Morris Street is on the right side. The Morris Street School is the light tan building there. The gymnasium that's under construction is in the upper left corner, the northwest corner. And then the new gymnasium, which will be elevated over parking, is the darker tan or orange box, which is over just below the just south of the existing or the gymnasiums under construction. So as you can see, the parking lot is really just being expanded to accommodate this structure. The driveways up Marsh Street will remain the same. There's a two-way driveway up at the north end will be the same. There's a one-way exit driveway just south of that, which will stay the same. And then there's a third driveway south of the Marsh Street School, which will stay the same. The dark gray will be new parking lot, and you can see that there with handicap accessibility spaces. And then there'll be full circulation below the new gymnasium, two-way circulation with parking. So it just provides a nice parking lot with different access points and full circulation to get around the site. And then you can see Mr. Feldman pointed out the walkway that connects right there, which connects the Grand Street building to the new gymnasium. And then you can see the gray below it. That's the separation. That'll be parking, but that's the separation between the new gymnasium and the facade of the existing building. So really, this just completes the campus, provides the adequate parking, the handicap accessibility, and gives it a nice circulation. And again, as Mr. Feldman pointed out, you're really not going to see this structure from Morris Street, except for maybe a glimpse as you look down the alley of the southern driveway. You really won't see it unless you're inside the campus itself. But again, it'll be architecturally compatible with the other buildings, and really just finishes off the campus and cleans everything up in the back to make it a functional facility.
Thank you very much. Are you complete with your presentation?
Yes, I'm complete unless there are any questions regarding that.
Okay, so at this moment, I think we'd like to open it up to the commission for questions to the applicant. Please raise your hand, and Gianfranco will reply accordingly.
Okay, commissioners, I'm looking, and I see that Chairman Tate has a question.
Yes. So my question to the applicant is regarding the materiality of this. I noticed from the elevations it appears to be a masonry material or brick. Can you talk a little bit more about what that elevation would be that you would see through the alleyway and that parking lot, please?
Yes, so, and actually, we left this a little bit open in discussion because I knew we were having a meeting today, so we didn't have this materialized. We didn't have this material finalized. There was a conversation I wanted to have with the commissioners this evening. Because it'll be elevated, it'll be the second floor, and we are doing next door a masonry structure. We changed, originally it was supposed to be a metal structure, like a warehouse structure, and now we changed to a concrete structure. What I would propose, and again, well, I guess this is tonight's conversation, what I would propose is to match the concrete structure that we have now, that we propose at the 8 Morris Street Gym on the other corner. It should match accordingly. Although by the Morris Street, because there's so much visibility to Morris Street, we have one side with brick. The side facing Morris Street, we are putting actual brick. What I would want, because this side is totally not visible to Morris Street, what I would want is just to do the concrete structure matching the next door gym.
So just for clarification, the brick would only be on that one facade, and then the perimeter of it would also be the concrete structure to match the adjacent structures. The adjacent
Yeah,
gym.
I would ask the commission if I could do away without doing any brick, because it doesn't have any visibility to Morris Street. Because it's up in the air and it doesn't have any visibility to Morris Street, so I would just match the concrete tilt-up look,
Yes.
matching without doing any brick.
If I might interject, let me just pull up the screen again here. So the only glimpse of this building that you get is when you're looking down through here on Morris Street between the two buildings. And the only thing you can see at that point predominantly is this access of the bridge that's connecting the two buildings. That, or two structures, that bridge is up on the second floor here. So from Morris Street at the streetscape, when you look down there, you're really going to see this openness through the alleyway. Okay? If you look up, yes, you'll see this, but driving by in a car and you're looking at car height, you're really going to visualize more of this here. So what Mr. Spears proposing is that the facades of the building, if I go back to this gymnasium, what we ended up doing was providing brick on this face, which is totally visible from Morris Street, because you have the parking lot in front of it. However, the remaining three sides of this gymnasium is going to be the concrete exposed. And what I personally think that would look the best in terms of architectural would be if this building was allowed to be the natural concrete as well.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. I want to bring up one more point. The difference between this building, the building that we got approved in 2018 was a ground-up floor with putting on brick, although it's a huge expense, but it's physical because you're putting it on the floor going up. When you're putting about, we spoke to many engineering companies, when you're lifting up a building in the air, putting on the brick obviously adds a tremendous amount of cost because you don't have the footing and foundation to support that brick. So it makes it extremely complicated to have that brick installed versus having it on the ground. And that's why I would love if I could get some relief on that. And since, like Mr. Feldman mentioned, that we don't have any marsh visual anyway, if we could just, continue with the concrete facade.
Do you plan to have some kind of masonry patterns or some kind of methodology to break down the scale of that large mass on that elevation?
So what we would do, the answer to that is yes, and what we would do is we could coordinate that with Gianfranco and go into some detail as to how we could do that. And I'm thinking perhaps my initial inclination would be to take some impressions similar to the windows that occur on the rear of the Grand Street building and take that scale and do some, maybe 2 or 3 inch impression into the concrete to replicate that pattern.
Right, and do you imagine this to be like a gray concrete, a typical raw gray concrete, or would it be colored to match some of the existing masonry that's proposed?
Again, we could coordinate that with Gianfranco. The coloring, I don't...
If I could add something. Commissioner, the way this is, and I don't know, David, if you have handy on your system, the tilt-up building, any tilt-up building, I would love the commissioner to see what a tilt-up building looks like, because we just finished one. I can email you something. Maybe I can email you something. I'll try to email you a picture. But basically, the way this is done, it's concrete, and we could do impressions, and we could paint it any color you want. Basically, it's designed, it's poured concrete, and we could paint it. And I hopefully, let me see if I can still do it now. If I can send a picture to David.
I actually have some pictures of the other school we just finished.
Okay, let me send. I'm sending it to you as well, if you don't have it. I just sent you from Jim White. I actually copied him here. There's something. The same pictures actually, but I would love commissioners to see the intensity of this concrete. It gets poured and it forms. And then we have the ability, like David Feldman said, we could do some impression, and we could paint it with different colors. We can make it extremely exotic to whatever is needed to bring some historic life to it. We have no issue with that at all. And David, if you can bring it up on the screen to show.
Yeah, I haven't received it yet. So let me just send the one one I have as well.
I think it's the same picture from Jim White, if you remember. He sent you some pictures, drone pictures.
I think once you guys,
923. He sent you an email, 923.
Yeah, I just got yours, Jeff. I just got yours, so just bear with me and let me open them.
It was definitely, this will help the board to understand what Hilltop building looks like. I think Gianfranco in the past, we did show him some pictures, but let's show it to the board as well.
Alright, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, do you see the picture right now?
confirmed.
Okay, so that's a school that we just completed with Mr. Spira, and this is tilt-up concrete. So you can see that we have the ability to. This was all the same color at one point, and what we had the ability to paint this section one color, this section the other, and then if you look up at the top here, you could see that the cornice was actually just the opposite, a reverse image in terms of the coloring.
And you see the engraving. Show them the engraving.
Yeah. So what Mr. Spears is talking about is here we have some etched into the concrete relief to break up the mass that you're referring to. Now we could actually even take an impression of an entire window and impress and make an imprint of that into the concrete as well. So we could simulate a window pattern within that concrete, and we could paint that different colors in order to replicate the Grand Street building. I personally am not sure if that is really the way you want to go. But that's something we could discuss with Gianfranco and coordinate that with him.
Okay, so
in this instance, we accented the corner of the building. But that's something we could coordinate with, like I said, Gianfranco. I personally don't necessarily. I kind of think if you create these imprints into the concrete and you try and replicate, a building from the late 1800s, early 1900s, I think the new architecture is just going to look hokey to be, if that's an architectural word, and I don't think it's going to do the existing building justice. But we're certainly willing to look at that.
Okay. Well, does that conclude your presentation?
At this point, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. What we're going to do is we're going to open this up to the commissioners, but before we do that, Tim, do we have a resolution and state of purpose for this particular application?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. Resolution number 2014 directs the Executive Director of the Historic Preservation Commission to prepare a memorandum containing the Commission's recommendations to the Planning Board and/or the Board of Adjustment regarding the property located at 183-229 Grand Street and 8-14 Morris Street, situated within the Great Falls Historic District.
Thank you, Tim. And with that, I'd like to open it up to the commissioners. Please raise your hand. Discussion regarding this application.
Do we need a motion?
We need a motion, yes.
Yes. Can we have a motion to open this up for discussion?
This is Rich. I make a motion that we open up for discussion.
All right. So we got a motion by Rich. Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Maribel.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, may I start by clarifying something? The resolution was read in the purpose statement that Tim Henderson read about sending a memo to the planning board and or board of adjustment. In this case, would be the planning board. I did not mention it in my opening report, and nor did Mr. Spear during his presentation. But we want the commissioners to know that this application has gone before the planning board on Thursday, just a few days before tonight, last Thursday. Because of the closeness of these meetings, I was consulted, and Mr. Spear asked if he could be at this meeting with the board and have the benefit of going to the planning board as well. So what that wraps up to mean is the planning board has passed a conditional approval for this application pending our conditions. So whatever I would still, like the resolution still applies, where I will be directed by you to write to the planning board with the conditions and recommendations made during this discussion upon the passage of this resolution. However, it is being done to incorporate your comments as opposed to just testify to them to the planning board. That's already been done, and they have agreed to move forward to incorporate your conclusions. This is a planning review application, so as you noticed, the presentation was largely focused on the larger plan for the project. And we always talk a little bit about materials, and it's, I think, very good practice for us to get clear with the applicants about what's expected with regard to materiality and guidelines and so forth, so they know what's coming next for design review. But the design review is still a formality that we take, and we can get into a lot of weeds on the materiality at that point. However, it's important, since the discussion's been open, to talk about the concrete structure and what it looks like, to mention and discuss at this point what your impressions or your opinions are about that. We can revisit this again at a design review once, for example, if you allow me to work with the applicants as they were suggesting. We'll have Mr. Feldman draw up some mock-ups of what we've kind of come up with after we work together and bring those back for design review. The important difference here will be is if you decide to accept the proposal for it being a tilt-up concrete structure that will be, let's say, painted or use of lines to break up mass, then that's what you're going to see in the design review. And it would not be fair to go back and say, well, I don't know, we don't like this, we've got to do something else, because you've given them a commitment sort of now as to your impressions about the difference between this and something else. So I wanted to say all of those things so you're aware. A, it's already been going to the planning board. B, this is a planning review. C, there's a design review, and we'll bring back more detailed sketches to you for approval at the design review. But that we should be talking about the issues that are on the table now. So the demolition of the buildings, the size and mass of the new buildings, the materiality of the new buildings are stuff that we can be discussing right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Commissioners, are there any points of questioning or discussion that we want to have based on the presentation and the Director's comments? Please raise your hand and the Director will answer you.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes, it troubles me a lot about the demolition of that 1905 building. That I know the other building that they really demolished was the most significant, but now we're going for the second most significant, and which is the most significant on the site right now. I do not think we should be allowing that demolition of that. It tells the story of the granite mill and its power and where the power came from, and I think that's an important building. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or concerns from the Commission, from the Board?
Commissioner Simpson?
Well, I don't have a comment.
Okay, sorry, I thought I saw your hand.
Does anyone else from the commission have any thoughts on Commissioner Walters' thoughts, just so we can sort of flesh this out in terms of where we collectively stand on this idea?
Or about the structure proposed as a tilt-up concrete structure. Any comments about that? I'm not seeing anyone interested in commenting, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
How about the? Yeah, go ahead, please.
I say, can you speak on any other references in the district that might sort of serve as case studies for the commission to reference? The PSEG building, other buildings that may have some sort of connection to the construction methodology that would sort of help everyone understand what we're getting into with this particular one?
Yes, okay. So if the commissioners will recall, we looked at an application from PSEG to erect a rather large tilt-up construction building. They were able to come to the commission with their engineers and their architects and provide very detailed feedback in their drawings and in designing a technical building that had brick incorporated into the casting, as well as a breaking up of massing, cornice, specifically colored mortar, specifically chosen brick, and I'm going to put a screen. I'll put that picture of that up on screen. This is a project that we reviewed and approved, and this is the size of this building, the kind of large, 3.5-story building with very few. This is just an equipment building, so it had very little need for windows. And we were able to talk a lot with them about creating these large soldier courses and kind of recessed and pushed out. You can see this brick is sort of pushed out just a little bit to break up the mass. These larger lines are expansion joints that go in between the tilt-up.
If I may interrupt for a second, I don't see a...
I'm sorry, Mr. Feldman. Please don't interrupt me. This is not your time.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So.
Franco, excuse me, it's Joyce. I don't see anything on the screen.
Confirmed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. It's coming up now. Do you see it now?
Visible. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't share the screen.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I mean, this is kind of I'm trying to say overall, this is a complex building that was in the midst of a neighboring historic building on the site. It had a large mill next to it. It was completely going to be in public view. This is something that we reviewed, and they did a great job at executing this building. However, if I can get to one of these photos, and I pointed this out when I had a conversation with Mr. Spira when we talked about tilt-up construction and being able to include brick. I mean, this is a close-up view of what the brick in a tilt-up construction looks like. It's incredibly plain and very angular and very machine-looking. It doesn't have the look of hand-laid brick. It doesn't really bode well with, right next to historic structures, the way, like we talked about in terms of the small gymnasium building, the commission has directed that it be, brick facing Morris Street, and how, this is really not the look that the commission was, looking for. So that one is being laid, by hand, and it's being done in full brick, and it will have a great kind of effect of blending in more with the buildings around it as a new building. As you can see, this is way too uniform and too kind of clean lined to really be a good mimic for a historic building. However, with that said, when one of our standards tells us about differentiating old buildings from new, and this would be one way of differentiating the old building from the new, or using plain concrete tilt-up would be another way of differentiating an old building from the new. So either a finish like this or a finish in concrete as it's presented would accomplish that goal of differentiating the old building from the new. So this is just the context that the chairman asked me to provide for a tilt-up building that's done with brick as part of one of the facades. I'm not saying that this isn't what was discussed or presented by the applicants. This is not what the one question that we got from Chairman Tate about the concrete construction. This isn't what he was asking about, but this is the context that we've done one of these before, and I think we had some very favorable results in this particular situation. So the other context that we would have in the district is we often look district-wide to look for materiality context, and we have so we can get sort of a palette of material for our applicants. And of course, the main material in the district is brick. Another material in the district is massive concrete. Now, we do have some mill buildings, especially the newer ones, the ones in the early 20th century were done as a combination sometimes of concrete and brick. We have, for example, at the Great Falls, the foundation of the steam plant building. The steam plant building was brick, and what's left is now massive concrete, poured concrete, very plain, and painted sort of one color. So that's another context in the district that I could offer. So, I mean, concrete is not a obtuse material for our district, and again, the building is not very visible from the public right away. Although I would argue that you would see the building driving down Morris Street from the kind of open end of the site. You would be able to glimpse it, but that's not nearly anything like being right on the street line. It's much farther away. It's a very large building. I think you can appreciate by the drawings that the massing of the building is as large as the addition that sticks out from the original building, which you would no longer see with this building in front of it. But again, since it's the rear of the site, we tend to review this a bit differently than if it was in the on the public right away. So I think I've said enough about context of the building. I think it's an important decision, though, that the commissioners should sound off on vis-a-vis the treatment of the of the visible part of the building. The building would stand out a lot more as a concrete structure, as a new structure. I mean, it's going to stand out, I think, as it is, because it's got these, sort of on stilts. It's got these openings that you drive underneath the building. So that in itself would be a little bit different than the rest of the site. But you got to appreciate also the scale of it. It's very tall, it's very long, it's very blocky. You'll see that large facade, and we're going to have to do a careful job with being able to break it up. I think Mr. Feldman's example that he showed of the entire building being done in tilt-up is a great contextual example of like the use of line and how it look. One thing that I'm not clear about is I don't believe this building that they're proposing has a lot of windows either, because it's a gymnasium. That's its primary use, and as you know, gymnasiums tend to not have a lot of natural light. So you won't have the benefit of seeing, a lot of windows punched into this facade to break it up. It'll have to be done with design or with another material. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director. Can you open up the picture of the previous building, before we close this down? I just want to verify with the commission, I want to explore Commissioner Walter's, sentiment about the removal of the previous building.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, give me a second to open that up. I'll have to close this and
Okay.
grab the other viewer, because I think I closed the other viewer. Yeah, see, this is the first application. Give me a moment, I'll grab up the other folder. Almost there. I got lost. Huh. Oh boy. Let me see. I'm gonna have to ask Tim documentation, planning review, 1015. That should be the one. Yeah, I don't know. Tim, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I'm in the Morris Street folder. I'm not sure why I'm not finding the photo folder. Under design review, there's a planning review, but I don't see the photos. Can you remind me where the photos are at? I had them before, obviously.
I don't have the Z drive in front of me. I can open it and try to find it though.
I mean, they were in the project folder you had told me, right?
And John Franklin, maybe it's not on Morris Street, maybe it's Granite?
Correct, they're in the 8 to 14 Morris Street folder, John Franco.
Okay, I'm on the Morris Street folder, 8-14. I open it up and I see subfolders. I see new gym, design review, planning review, and it's under planning review. I don't really see these things. I don't see the, no, this is the older folder, sorry. Gosh, I found it so easily last time. I apologize, everybody. HPC current. So, Tim, you're sure you had put them, they're not in the meeting folder, they were in the project folder, you said, right?
Correct. I'm trying to find them right now.
Yeah.
John Franco, in the 8 to 14 Morris Street folder, there's a folder that says 8 to 14 Morris Street 10/9/2020. Those are the pictures.
Okay, hold on, let me get there now. I'm under Great Falls, Morris Street, and then there's 8-14, and then where's the folder again?
It's going to say 8 to 14 Morris Street, and then 10/9/2020.
I got it. Okay, I found it. Okay, I'm going to put this up on screen. Sorry about that, everyone. Here we go. Okay, share. Okay. Okay, Tim, can you go on mute? You are on mute. Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is the building that Commissioner Walter was referring to.
Okay. Well, thank you. So, Commission Director, is it proper if I give my thoughts to the Commission on LC?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So, in my opinion, I think that I totally agree with Commissioner Walter on the idea that this is the second most important building in this sort of rare area. However, I think since you won't really be able to access that, for, the integrity of the project and, just, better usage of the site. I think it would make sense to remove it. My only thing is, in my opinion, I think the scale of the new structure needs to be visibly broken down some way, and as the applicant recommended, I think it should be something that is reviewed with the executive director. I'm fine with the tilt-up concrete. I just think that it should relate to the materials that surround it. And idea of the punched out window recesses to kind of break the scale down and relate to the existing illustrations. So those are thoughts, and I'm happy to hear what other people have to say about the demolition of this building and also the scale of the new proposals. Thank you.
Okay, other commissioners that want to comment?
Should we,
I see Rich Walter.
Yeah, I just want to have the commissioners participate a little more here in discussion. Should we allow the demolition or shouldn't we allow the demolition? What's the opinion of the commission? I want to hear from all the commissioners. Thank you.
Walter, I think when the commissioners aren't speaking, I think they're ready to. They don't have a comment, therefore they're ready to vote.
Okay, Commissioner Walter, we have right now a motion on the floor that we're discussing for the conditional approval of the application the way you heard it. Now, we usually are able to discuss possible conditions, and sometimes we need to do an internal motion within the larger context of the motion on the floor about topics like this, like the demolition of this building. So you could make a motion to explore the commissioners. If they're not speaking, you can ask them to vote on the matter that you're interested in. You can make a motion to do that and see if it gets seconded. Can someone go on mute?
No, if nobody else cares, why should I care? Okay.
There's some noise in somebody's background. Can everyone go on mute, please? That's definitely not on my side. Okay, so Rich Walter, you made your comment. You're not going to make a motion then, okay? Okay, so since there's no further discussion, Mr. Chairman, do you want to make a roll call on the application with the with what conditions that the breakdown of the concrete structure, the kind of treatment of the concrete structure be left to me and the applicants to work on and bring back to you in design review? Is that the only condition that I've heard? That was the one that you put out on the table, or that they suggested, for example?
Yes, so the conditions would be we're okay with the tilt-up concrete. The scale of the engravings needs to be presented to you and the commission for design review, as well as the potential window locations or the punch recessed areas. Again, these are not finalized until we review it, but the presentation, the trajectory of their application should go in this direction. And then the other thing is the concrete should relate to the existing materiality of the building surrounding it in terms of color, hue, and that way it could kind of blend in a little bit. I think those are the conditions. So it's the engravings, the windows and everything should go through. They should be reviewed through the executive director, and they should provide a option that shows various options of the concrete finishes, and then you could look at a mock-up for approval of the material that they decide to use.
Okay. I don't see anyone making other comments, so I guess that will define the motion.
All right. Can we get a motion to approve the application with the previously stated conditions? I'll make the motion.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we got Maribel for the motion, and then we got Commissioner Rafael for the second. Tim?
Roll call.
Am I correct that we are only recording the vote of alternate 1 now?
Yes, we have Commissioner Simpson and hold on, let's see here. Do we have another absentee? I don't think we do. I think we have a full house now.
Understood.
So I don't believe we're recording either of the alternates.
Oh, neither alternate.
Yeah, unless I'm missing something, we have everyone on board, so neither alternate's being recorded, and no one is recused.
But how
Commissioner
about missing a commissioner? How about since we're missing a commissioner?
Oh, that's correct. We are missing a commissioner. Okay, thanks for pointing that out. And I believe we can take the vote of one alternate. Thank you for pointing that out. It was not in my mind at this time. So then, Commissioner Garcia-Leon can be recorded. Tim, go ahead with roll call.
Commissioner Garcia-Leon.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Rafael.
Yes.
Commissioner Redmond.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Abstain.
Commissioner Walter.
No.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We'll contact you for next steps. Thank you very much.
Okay. With that being said, we will move to item number 4, administrative matters. We'll go with line item A, COVID-19 state of emergency protocols update by the executive director. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As far as our COVID-19 state of emergency protocols, they're still in place as they have been since the beginning of the pandemic with regards to our public meetings. Our public meetings have been advertised for the new fiscal year back in July of this year to take place until further notice via electronic means, as we've been holding these meetings. As an example, this one that we're holding now. However, as reported in last month's update, the staff office of the Historic Preservation Commission is open every day for even walk-in business. We do encourage applicants to call and make appointments in advance to make sure that our staff members are available. Sometimes staff members are out in the field. Or maybe working from home occasionally. So we are working in the office, and we invite our applicants to come by as they normally would. However, we also encourage them to make an appointment in advance. So the preservation office is back to quasi-normal status quo with regard to meeting with the public in our building, and we can also have some larger meetings, and we've been having larger meetings in our conference room. However, we have a limited number of seats that we can accommodate. We are also continuing to meter applicants in the field and do field reviews as we usually do. So that concludes my report on the state of emergency protocols.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions? Raise your hand. If not, we'll move to the next item. Director, do you see anything? Okay, we'll move to item B. Item B, zoning violation referral.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to turn this over to Tim Henderson, the Historic Preservation Specialist, to provide some update on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director. The staff office continues to aggressively refer violations referrals to the zoning officer and to the appropriate zoning inspector. Several hours ago, I sent you a spreadsheet which enumerates the violations referrals that have been made since June 2020, which are in excess of 50 now. You will also see on that spreadsheet the code for the zoning notice that was issued to the property owner. The protocol is as follows. The property owner will receive a zoning notice, and they have 14 days to bring the property into compliance and otherwise abate that notice. After 14 days, a schedule of fines initiates. The goal of the zoning notice is to avoid the complexities of a fine and to get the property owner to dialogue with the city to bring the property to compliance. Director Archimede and I have been so far successful at collecting applications from the property owners. Some applications we are able to approve administratively because it is within the appropriate design guidelines. Other applications, as in the address in the East Side Park, which was heard this evening, receive a letter of denial, and then in the case of that property owner, opted to appeal before the commission. But I want to assure the commission that we continue to aggressively refer all violations in the downtown district, in the East Side Park, and in the Great Falls Historic District. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Please raise your hand for the director and he will address you. Okay. If there's no questions, we'll move on to item C on administrative matters, National Trust Annual Conference.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I had mentioned at the last meeting and in several emails to the commissioners, the National Trust for Historic Preservation is holding their annual conference this year remotely, virtually, which provides us the opportunity to join in from our computers instead of traveling out of state to a place generally that's pretty far away and pretty expensive to get to. I invited everyone to let me know about their availability or their interest in attending the conference. And I did hear from a couple of commissioners, and I didn't hear from most of you. So I'm assuming that you're either not interested in participating or just can't afford the time from work and so forth. So the conference is going to start at the end of October, which is literally next week. And we do have the flexibility of being able to join in the conference, right up until the time that it starts. So if anyone changes their mind, I think we have to, sort of the rest of this week. I have not still sent in my purchase order for registration of the people who would like to attend. So if you would like to attend, this is really your last chance to let me know so I can put a registration forward in your name. We can only do them as a group, like all at once. So once I submit it, if anyone contacts me and it's too late, then I won't, won't be able to include your name. So that's sort of our update at this point. And looks like there might be a question from Commissioner Rafael.
Just letting you know that I will be attending the conference as well. I did not send an email about it.
Okay, very good. Thanks for letting me know. Is there anyone else who's maybe thought it over and would like to attend This is part of our annual training requirement. We haven't had a good opportunity in the past couple of years because the state level annual preservation conference has been unsuccessful in the past couple of years in getting situated. I mean, we had our conference in Paterson, if you remember, and frankly, since then I believe there has been one. So this annual conference now is a great opportunity to join a few sessions. It goes over a period of a couple of days, so you don't have to join every day. You don't have to join every session, but I, again, encourage you to think about it. I see Commissioner Walter would like to be recognized.
Yes, Gianfranco, I am not sure yet. I'm still trying to clear those dates. But can I let you know for sure on Wednesday? Is that too late?
I think it'll be okay, and I'll be waiting for you on Wednesday then. I'm happy to.
Okay, I'll let you know.
I think we have till the end of this week to finalize our position. Commissioner Tate.
Okay.
Yeah. So just piggybacking on Commissioner Walters, I'll let you know on Thursday whether or not I have the availability for the conference.
Okay, thank you very much. That would conclude my presentation on this. And of course, if you'd like to figure out if you really want to go to the conference, you can go to the website and check it out. The whole schedule is there, the different sessions. If there's something that is of interest to you, there's a lot being offered. I went over this in a previous meeting about the specific topics. They're always very contemporary. The topics that have come up this year for preservation are very profound and are very interesting to follow. And sort of similar to the entire climate that's happening across the nation today with many different topics, and a lot of these topics are reflected in the conference. All right, thank you very much. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Director. If there's any questions, please raise your hand. Director. Okay, so we'll move to item D, personnel changes updates.
Thank you very much. I would like to formally announce for the record some of the changes in personnel that are happening right now. As everyone knows, we had received communication from our elected chairperson, Joanne Wiley, earlier this month that she has resigned effective immediately due to a change in residence. And her position on the commission requires residency in the city, and therefore she could not continue to attend her position in her commission. So she resigned it. With that said, that leaves our vice chair, our elected vice chair, Will Tate, to take on the duties of the chair. And he has done so and is doing so until the term is up. So that would mean the next election, basically, which at this point is still scheduled for next July. Meanwhile, we were left without a vice chair filling the position of vice chair, and we are starting to consult with our attorney and Robert's Rules of Order to see about the protocol for electing a new vice chair. We hope to, at the November meeting, be ready to do that. And right now, we're looking into the protocol of having nominations like through the chair or on the floor, and then a direct vote for election. It can be really quite simple. And this is something that the chairman can help in consultation with our attorney to decide the protocol that we'll bring to you the next meeting. We also have received an email from our assigned corporation counsel attorney, Romina Pasquale, that after attending her last HPC meeting last month, she had moved on to other employment outside of the city of Paterson. She's no longer with the city, and we have with us tonight then David Seligman, who is an assistant corporation counsel for the city of Paterson, who was temporarily assigned to represent our board as our attorney and to function here at our meetings. I've known Ben David for many, many years, the entire time that I've been working at the city. So we have a very active working relationship, and I look forward to, and I have already actually counted on him and called on him with questions about applications and about the situations that we see, coming by on a daily basis. So I'd like to say welcome to Ben David to our board. And until I think the city does have intention of hiring a land use attorney, in which case Ben David would be sort of a temporary appointment at this point. So we may be changing attorneys again when that happens, but we really don't have any word on when that will happen. So sort of until further notice. So we do have the an opening for another commissioner on the board, as was brought up earlier. And I believe that Mircea is vetting commissioners, so we may have a new commissioner soon, and give you further update on that at the next meeting. So that concludes my report about personnel changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And before we transition, I just want to say thank you guys for electing me Vice Chair. I look forward to working with each of you on in this role as the chair. We have a big year ahead of us, and I'm honored to work with each and every one of you guys. Before we move into committee reports, are there any questions for the Director on personnel changes? Okay. So we're going to move to item number 5, committee reports. We'll start with A, historic designations. The Mish Silk Company and Total Avenue Works update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So the Designations Committee provided a report a couple of months ago with regard to a palette of designations to pursue for this upcoming season. And among them was the reintroduction of the Mish Silk Company, Mish Mill on Totowa Avenue, that had previously been nominated by the Commission for designation in 2012. 2012 is a number of years ago at this point, and I was directed to reach out to the owner and to solicit his engage him on the reintroduction of this designation at this time. We also discussed the introduction of another designation group that we had talked about for several years, and that is the designation of Federici statuary and artworks that are in public spaces throughout the city. We have a handful of those that are within the city, and the kind of group designation of them was another interest that we discussed that I've also been working on. So the other one that we've been working on is the Church of the Holy Communion on Pearl Street, and we did send and give you an update and report on that last month. But turning back to the Mish Mill, I would like to report that we did reach out, as I reported to you last month, to the owner as directed, and we received a response. However, in consultation with the attorney, we looked at our ordinance from 2014 and how it's been changed. We looked at the 2012 work that the Commission did, and it was advised that it's most prudent to bring the designation back to the Commission for a hearing to include a public advertisement as called for by the ordinance. The ordinance calls for a public advertisement of the hearing at the Commission, and this would also renew a resolution in support of the designation by the current membership of the Commission. We found that the majority of people who voted commissioners who voted on the designation in 2012 are not represented on the commission any longer. So to sort of renew this business in more in full force, I'd like to ask the chair if the commission would consider scheduling a hearing for the Michel designation at the November meeting, to which we would appropriately advertise as directed by the ordinance. This way we would make a presentation about the building again and offer, of course, a hearing so that anyone in the public would be able to speak about the designation before and take testimony before the commission votes on it. The steps to be taken after, if it's supported at the commission level, would be to move the recommendations of the commission to the planning board. And that's where the designation process was stopped in 2012. So I would like to ask the chair if he would consider my recommendation to schedule a public hearing for this matter in the November meeting.
Confirmed. Yes, I think we should schedule the meeting. I believe that's November 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes, so confirmed, we should schedule a hearing for the next meeting for the designation of this particular application.
Okay, so it is Monday the 23rd. That's November the 23rd. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any additional items on the historic designation?
Well, we've been continuing to pursue the contact information for the new owners of the church, and we've been reaching out to the diocese, and we did not get a response in time for the meeting to be able to report to you, that that's my next intention, is to reach out to the new owners of the building. Also, we would ask for the for a committee meeting with the designation committee again before the next meeting, so we can discuss bringing to the next meeting a report about the Federici designations and a report on a couple of other items that they wanted the staff to look into. So that concludes the report I have. It looks like Commissioner Walter has a question.
Yes, the committee had brought up also the PS 17 and the firehouse on Grand Street, I believe it is, and you were going to
Yes.
into that possibility?
Yes, correct. We have not looked into those as of yet, so we can visit you again at a committee meeting. We'll have more information at the meeting, so we can segue into the next commission meeting with more information on that.
Thank you. Questions? Are there any additional questions for the director?
Doesn't look like any.
Okay, so we'll move forward to the design review committee for the new construction at 378-382 East 42nd Street. And if I'm not mistaken, is the applicant here on the line?
No, the applicant is not on the line. That's what we wanted to just inform everybody about.
Okay, so we will wait till we get in touch with the applicant. We do have a report that we issued via the secretary.
Yeah, basically, the design review committee did meet about this project, and we were hoping to bring it forward even this month. However, we wanted to report back to you, to the committee, and to the commission that although we made many attempts reaching out to the applicant, we did get some limited feedback. We provided the feedback from the committee to the applicant and to the and dialogue with the applicant's architect, and we received sort of some of what we requested, but not quite enough to have a complete application to be prepared for a presentation tonight. So there has been, just, a couple days ago, an in-person visit with the owner, and we believe that we're continuing to put things together to possibly have this matter come to next month's meeting. So we'll continue to just, work with that information, and hopefully we'll have enough of information and a complete application to be able to present this application next month's meeting.
Thank you, Executive Director. Does that conclude committee reports? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay, we're going to move forward to item number 6, old business and correspondence. We're going to start with A, 90-98 Pro Street, / Church of Holy Communion, the update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the same information I just provided. We reported last month that we confirmed with the diocese or with other parties that the sale had been consummated, but we were not entirely confirmed. And we've continued this month to not only try to get the 100% confirmation of this, but also the contact information for the new owners. And again, it's been a very quiet month with regard to them getting back to us. And I think for the coming month, we may, kind of step it up a bit and try to request a phone call or something of that matter rather than just relying on emails. And we'd like to kind of get the information entirely for next month's meeting. And if I'm able to get the information, I plan to reach out to the new owners, make contact with them, and sort of report to you on what's up with their plans. And even if possible, to meet the new owners, during the week, before the next meeting, so I can provide another update.
Thank you very much, Executive Director. If there's no questions or hands raised, we'll move along to the next item. Can you just confirm that no one raised their hand?
No one has raised their hand.
Okay, so we're going to go to item B under old business and correspondence, the director's report and activities at historic sites. And for point of reference, you can go through 1 through 5. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For item number 1, Great Falls Historic District, I'd like to report that we had unanimous consent on a resolution passed by the Paterson City Council just a week ago to continue to move forward with the quarry lawn construction project. So this is a project I've been reporting to you on a regular basis. We had our professionals ready to make a public presentation at the workshop of the City Council over 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, there was not time for that presentation. However, the resolutions that were sent forward to go along with the presentation were presented at the meeting following the workshop, and they were both voted affirmatively. One of those was to expand the contract, was to amend the contract of the current designers so that we could include additional ADA compliance-related design features having to do with the river walk in the Overlook Park area, to kind of connect Overlook Park with the formal paved pathway to the new work area in Quarry Lawn. I'm also pleased to tell you that the ATP site fence project that is being run by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has been reviewed by the SHPO and by Section 106 required historic reviews. The approvals were obtained several weeks ago. We are now within 2 days of completing the mandatory 30-day comment period. upon which, the light will be green to proceed, and the EPA has already been soliciting bids for this project, and I imagine is probably close to either opening those bids, or if they're not open at this point, they may be ready to award them. So this project getting started is sort of right around the corner. We're very hopeful that work will get started as soon as possible in the month of November to beat like the real cold weather. It's sort of advantageous to start the work in November because the leaves will be falling and it will provide a lot more visibility for the work to happen. I am going to be monitoring the excavations and the moving of some of the debris piles in an archaeological capacity. That's a role that I'll be playing in this project. So by next month's meeting, I hope to report that this project is well underway. There also should be a press announcement when an award is made for the project. So this is exciting news because it sort of is the beginning of more work to come at the ATP site. The quarry lawn work also kind of getting past the city council into a more accelerated sort of public comment period and final design phase to create the bidding documents so that project can also go out to bid. I also would like to let everyone know that our park superintendent, Darren Bach, who was on temporary assignment to another national park for the past 4 months in the Delaware, along the Delaware River, he's now back full-time, at Paterson Great Falls Park, and we're glad to have him back. And I reported to you last month that there was an arrangement with a nonprofit to do some improvement work over at Mary Ellen Kramer Park that was done while Darren Bach was gone. If you haven't had a chance to get over there and take a look at it, I invite you to do so. It's really, there's been some improvements there that have enhanced the experience of people viewing the falls and being able to circulate in the park with an additional stairway. I think it's, something that will be obvious if you go over and take a look. So we've also been continuing to correspond to provide all of our approvals, conditions and approvals to 50 Spruce Street with regard to the skylights, for example, that we reviewed at the last meeting. That project is getting ready to go to the planning board, and we'll provide our input accordingly to the planning board. And after the planning board's approval, then they should be getting ready to go to the next phase, which is planning to start with their drawings and drawing review at the building department for permits, archaeological investigations also, and so forth. So we'll continue to report to you on that exciting project. I also noted earlier that the work at Morris Street continues to progress. There was a very large list of compliance issues that we gave to the applicants at Spira, who spoke to you earlier tonight, about the complex that I'm continuing to follow up on, that will make permanent installations on the site to make sure everyone is informed and memorialized in a permanent way the history of the ancillary buildings that are lost to this kind of larger reuse plan. So that's something that's also ongoing. I've also know that the bid openings for Lou Costello Park that we also reviewed is happening, I believe, tomorrow, October 20th. So I hope to have an update for you about that. I'm hoping that the bids will go well in terms of budget and that they're all going to be, good bids, and that we may have the ability to award one of them through the DPW so the work can start. I have already communicated with and have met several times with the Votto House National Labor Historic Site in Halden to assist with the interpretive signage and panels for installation at the new Lou Costello Park. We've got a couple of drafts, and when the time is appropriate, I'll bring them back, circulate them to the commission for review. This is a very exciting opportunity, as you recall, to interpret the silk strike and its significance in Paterson, as well as the neighborhood for the Italian American community that developed there. So that's some of the topics that are happening in the Great Falls District. I also, a very fresh topic is a follow-up on an unfortunate fire that happened on the corner of Chauncey Street, where a three-story sort of three historic buildings that historically, have been put together as one multifamily. There was a fire, if you remember, a couple of months ago that we reported on. Well, we met today with the owner and the fire department and everyone on site about the demolition of that building, since it is a total loss and is a structural structural threat of collapse at this point. And the owner will be designing a new building for that site. So we provided some initial input, and we'll look forward to continue to working with them over time to bring an application for a new building in that location. So that's another topic to report. The next projects I'd like to tell you about are the the Downtown Commercial Historic District projects. I know that Ken and I were out on a site visit to an exciting storefront rehabilitation that still maintains a lot of its historic integrity, and we think that will be a great a rehab project for a historic storefront in our downtown. We don't always get the opportunity to do that because most of the storefronts that we review have been removed. Like the historic storefronts are gone, since the 1950s or the 60s, and we're only left with rolling gates and aluminum, parts that we review and sort of go over and over the same thing. So this one was pretty unique and exciting, and it appeared in one of the movies. It was kind of spruced up in a historic way, and the owner got really excited about the results of that movie set, and he showed us pictures and said, "I want my storefront to look like this." So I thought that was an exciting topic to report to you. They are shooting another film at City Hall today, and I'm not sure if it'll go on for longer, but we haven't seen any filming since COVID, so it's exciting to see that energy starting up again in the Downtown Commercial District. As far as the larger projects that we've approved, specifically the Charles Foro development projects, we haven't seen any movement on the larger demolition and that large building that we approved some time ago. We believe it's still in design, and we are still trying to work on the Ellison Street project for that total sort of rehab of the Romaine building that we approved some time ago. That also is in sort of a limbo stage, and we've been on an almost weekly basis getting the problems worked out to move that along. So that concludes my report on the Downtown Commercial Historic District. As far as Eastside Park Historic District goes, there are some news articles that some of you may have seen. I think I probably should circulate some of these articles to the Commission for your awareness that there is a discussion happening between Passaic County and the city about the transfer of lands of East Side and West Side parks into county ownership, so that they would then take over the stewardship and improvements of those parks. Again, this is now public information, and I wanted to let you know that similar to how I've been working with the transfer of lands with the National Park Service from the City of Paterson to the Park Service at the Falls, I've made suggestions to the administration that we include the stewardship of our historical artifacts and objects that are in those parks. And that specifically means the movable parts of the landscape, like statuary and commemorative plaques, and items that are not buildings or structures that would be transferred with the land, but rather represent more cultural property to the city of Paterson. And I am looking into providing a license agreement to be part of the consideration, the conversation about the transfer. This way, those items would remain in perpetuity and ownership of the city, as opposed to being transferred with the land to the county or to the Park Service, to remain at the disposition of the city for its decision, to decide what to do with them, if anything, other than leave them in place. So I wanted to also let you know about that. The Eastside Park Historic District application that we reviewed last month for the replacement of the slate roof, I would like to ask the chairman about the possibility of bringing that application back to the Preservation Commission next month, on November 23rd. The applicant reached out to us and has requested an audience with the commission to sort of rerun the application so that he could provide additional testimony. So far, the way that I would advise that happening, if it's the chairman's and the commission's position to allow for the review of this application again, would be to have the applicant submit a new application, and the new application would then be taken under formal action again at the November meeting. I can tell you, however, that there would be nothing substantially new about the applicant's proposal. He would still be proposing to remove the slate roof and replace it with an asphalt or asphalt-like material. That aspect would not change, but I do need to ask, because it is an executive privilege, to decide if this application should come back again to the commission. So I present that question now to the chair.
So you said there's no significant changes from the previous application. Did the applicant give you any intelligence on what that difference would be between what we went through in a previous review versus what they're proposing? Is there any...
What we know about it is he's noted that he's gotten more up to speed on other similar applications in the past. Like, the commissioners know that we've reviewed slate replacement applications before. This obviously is not the first one. There's been several of them over the past several years, and he indicated that he's come into knowledge of some of them, and he would like to point out, what the commission did on those, and I think he feels that the commission should extend either, the same courtesies or be able to hear more testimony on his part about what he thinks about the topic in general, based on past action. So he's learned more about this, like kind of on a larger scale in the district, and I believe he wants to make comments on that topic and ask us to consider reconsidering the resolution that was passed last time. But that's what I can tell you. I don't have any more detail than that. I didn't speak to him in any more detail until I had the word from you, if you want to entertain seeing him again, and then I'll be able to speak to him in more detail about his presentation.
Before we open, I want to open this up to the commissioners, just to, if that's okay. Do you believe that we should entertain this application? I mean, they gave us the presentation. We had a pretty clear response to the application based on our guidelines. And I understand the applicant would like to present again, but if there's no new information, I'm just wondering why we would entertain this particular proposal. Are there any thoughts or comments on this particular
Mr.
item?
Chair, this is Commissioner Redmond. I don't think we should be bringing this back. If we already gave our opinions and suggestions and they're not presenting anything new, there's no need for them to be presented in front of us again.
Commissioner Walter has a comment also.
Okay, Commissioner Walter?
Yes, I don't think we should start setting a precedent that if somebody doesn't like what we decide, that they come back at another meeting and try to do it again. I think that's a bad precedent to set. And as far as the slate roofs that you might be referring to, I had said that was a bad precedent to allow people to replace their slate roofs to begin with, and now it's coming back to bite us in the rear end. So I do not think we should allow him to come back.
Any more comments?
I don't see any more hands up here on comments, but yes, the standard. If a applicant needs clarification about what was decided at a meeting, we obviously handle that at the staff level. If an applicant wants to make a serious change from, kind of in direction on addressing, the work that needs to be done that would warrant a new application, then we would, receive a new application, and there would be a clear difference in the new application from the previous application. That would have to be very clear, I believe, that it would be appropriate to hear a new application if it deviates so much from, the first one. In this case, however, I don't believe that there would be any difference other than, it sounds pretty clear to me that he wants the ability to present additional testimony, expand his testimony, but essentially the application would be the same. So yes, what Rich said and what Commissioner Nakima said too, kind of applies, because we could not get the applicant to tell us that there was anything different about the application other than he wanted to provide new testimony and ask for reconsideration.
So with that being said, I do not believe we should have another round at this without any substantial change from our previous response. And if there is a change, then there should be a new application as stated.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes my director's report on the various districts. And thank you for answering those questions about the topics that have risen.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. We're going to move into item number 8, which is the public portion. Can we get a motion to open
I make a motion to open up public portion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion was by Commissioner Redmond, and the second was by Commissioner Rafael. So, Tim, can you have IT provide the number to the public? Roll call. I'm sorry, roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Garcia Leon. Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Rafael. Commissioner Redmond.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Chairman, I will pull up that information and read it for the record in 1 minute, please.
Okay, thank you.
Those who would like to participate in the public portion may call in at 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID 711-680-0071. Again, the call-in number is 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID 711-680-0071.
Thank you, Tim. The current time is 9:21. We will keep the line open till 9:23.
Okay, I'm monitoring for our IT department to see if we have any call-ins. No callers, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director. Can we have a motion to close public portion?
I make a motion to close public portion.
Can we say that again? I heard Ruth and McKenna.
Okay, both Nakima and I said, so I'll be the second. She's made the motion.
Okay, Tim, did you get that? So Commissioner Redmond for the motion, and then Commissioner Walter for the second.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garcia Leon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Rafael,
Yes.
Commissioner Redmond,
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson,
Yes.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'd like to thank everyone. Our meeting concludes at 9:24 on 10/19/2020. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Did we make a motion to close the meeting?